In the fall of 2015, 82-year-old Thomas Messick ventured into the forest in Warren County, New York State. His goal was a wee bit of deer hunting. He would never return, and if we go by the evidence, or lack thereof, it seems like he simply vanished into thin air. Now, people go missing all the time. We all know that. But several elements make this case worthy of discussion. See, Tom wasn't alone. In fact, he was with 6 other people, and he was a seasoned and well-experienced hunter. Hi folks, I'm Johnny, and welcome to The Oddest. This case definitely falls into the 411 territory. One minute he was there, and the next, simply gone. If you're new to the channel, there's a very slight chance that you're unfamiliar with the whole 411 enigma. I've covered exactly what it is in previous videos, which I'll link in the description below. In the meantime, let's get into today's story. Thomas Messick Sr., at the age of 82, vanished into the depths of the Adirondack Mountains on November 15th, 2015. This seasoned hunter, a former paratrooper and wilderness expert, left behind a bewildering puzzle that continues to baffle search and rescue teams and investigators. Tom ventured into the dense wilderness south of Brant Lake near Lily Pond, accompanied by 6 friends and family members. Their mission? Tracking deer and returning with their prized trophies. Little did they know that this expedition would forever erase Tom from their sight. Tom was no ordinary man. He embodied competence and practicality, not only in the great outdoors, but as a skilled handyman. His loved ones regarded him as fiercely independent and a beloved figure in the community. Tom's friendly and well-liked demeanour endeared him to all. Labelling him a seasoned hunter barely scratched the surface of his abilities. He had honed these skills over countless years, passing his knowledge on to his 3 sons and teaching others the art of navigating and hunting successfully out in the wild, ensuring that they obtained their licenses. He was, by all accounts, an unparalleled woodsman. However, age had begun to cast its shadow upon old Tom. A prior accident had left him blind in one eye, and his overall eyesight was deteriorating. Hearing too posed its challenges, and it seemed that he relied on hearing aids. Nevertheless, he remained undeterred. On that fateful day, Tom and his 6 companions, a mix of friends and family, embarked on an unfamiliar territory around Brant Lake. Armed with walkie-talkies, they had never explored this area before. Tom and 3 other senior members of the group established a post at the base of the hill, assuming the role of watchers. Their task was to remain stationary while the 3 younger members circled up the hill, intending to drive any deer downhill towards the watchers, who would then bring the hunters closer in for a shot. This plan was set in motion at noon, but strangely the woods remained devoid of any deer or any wildlife. This anomaly struck not only the group at the time, but also the subsequent search and investigative teams as seriously unusual. The 4 watchers were strategically spaced apart, each roughly about 150 to 200 yards from each other, concealed within the forested terrain at the base of the hill. Thick vegetation prevented them from maintaining visual contact. The watchers understood the gravity of their roles. Their cooperation was essential for this plan to succeed. Without their absolute vigilance, the entire operation would have crumbled. Tom's family, along with friends, adamantly asserted that he wouldn't simply abandon his post. Yet, when the 3 younger members regrouped at the base of that hill, their mission having yielded no deer sightings, well, they moved towards the general positions of the watchers. Over the walkie-talkies, they conveyed their fruitless efforts and set the rendezvous for 2 p.m, where they would pack up and head back. As the clock ticked towards that hour, everyone started making their way back to the trucks. But there was an eerie absence. Tom was nowhere to be found. Strangely, Tom never used his radio, not once, to signal for help or any form of distress. An unsettling sense of wrongness began to gnaw at the remaining 6. The 3 older members stayed close to the trucks, whilst the others ventured back into the forest, retracing the path to Tom's watch position. What they encountered was baffling. Tom had vanished without a trace. There were no clues, no signs, just an empty spot where he had been stationed. All his gear had vanished along with him. They could not fathom how Tom, with his experience, could have become lost. Moreover, this had never happened before. There were no telltale signs of animal predation or any indication of an attack. The darkness descended, panic set in. One of the men from the group raced out of the area in a vehicle to call for help, successfully reaching assistance by 4:30 p.m. Meanwhile, the remaining men within the forest were determined to catch Tom's attention, so they shouted his name. They fired shells up into the sky, hoping that the loud noise would guide Tom back to them. But their efforts yielded nothing. It was as if Tom had vanished into thin air, deaf to their calls and blind to their signals. This search persisted for 4 hours, lasting until around 7:30 p.m, when the last glimmers of daylight dwindled. Realising that their current strategy was futile, they regrouped and piled into their trucks. With high beams piercing through the gathering darkness and horns blaring, they scoured the roads, driven by unwavering belief that they would locate Tom. Although they were trying to remain optimistic, with each passing moment their uncertainty grew. Professional search and rescue teams arrived on the scene, joining the effort. However, as time passed, hope began to fade. The situation grew increasingly dire, with no one having a clue about Tom's whereabouts. Search dog teams were deployed from various angles, tracking to his exact last known position, which was exactly where he had sat in wait for this elusive deer. To the bewilderment of all involved, the dogs couldn't pick up any scent leading away from that spot. It defied all logic. It was as though Tom had simply vanished from that very point, leaving behind no trace. A mystery that confounded even the most seasoned searchers. The entire forest, including its outer reaches, was meticulously combed through repeatedly, yet not one single lead emerged. It was as if Tom just evaporated from existence. The baffling nature of Tom's disappearance deepened as it defied logical explanation. There were no signs of animal involvement, and given Tom's age, it seemed implausible that he could have covered extensive distances. Yet despite the efforts of hundreds of searchers, he still remained missing. Another eerie aspect to this mystery emerged during the actual hunt. As the 3 younger members made their way around and up the backside of the hill, one of the watchers stationed at the bottom of the hill, well, he reported hearing an unsettling sound, a noise that he struggled to describe. This sound was utterly out of place in the woods, unlike anything he had ever heard out in the wilderness. It was a brief, quick sound, absent of any echo. That deep in the forest, almost any type of sound would carry. It would echo. This man believed this sound emanated from the direction of the hill the younger members were now ascending, roughly 150 yards away. Remarkably, this aligned with the direction all the other watchers were facing. The description of the sound was likened to a snap or a crack, reminiscent of a large trap closing. Regrettably, there was no further detail or elaboration available about this peculiar sound. Sheriff Sean Lamore, who was present during the incident, also noted the unusual absence of wildlife. This just made it even more strange. State forest rangers and volunteer search teams tirelessly scoured the remote woods around Lily Pond in the hopes of finding any trace of Tom. Despite Tom wearing camouflage clothing, the search leaders acknowledged the difficulty of spotting him, sure. However, they brought in search dogs, believing that, well, the camouflage wouldn't matter. It wouldn't hinder the dog's ability to track his scent. Astonishingly, the dogs could not pick up any scent in the immediate area of Tom's disappearance. It was honestly as if he had left no trace at all. The search expanded in all directions, covering a vast area of challenging terrain, including swamps, where the searchers waded through chest-high water. It appeared that Tom's family held reservations about his entry into these areas from the very outset. Despite his age, Tom possessed a remarkable aptitude for the terrain. His family asserted that his common sense was still really sharp, and if he encountered any trouble, he would have attempted to reach out to his companions. This could have been achieved either by using the walkie-talkie or by signalling his location with shotgun shells fired into the air, just as the others had tried initially in their efforts to guide him back. Yet strangely, none of these measures were taken. It was as though Tom had fallen silent, and his friends and family never received any communication from him. As the search entered its 4th day, a pair of FBI tactical officers descended upon the scene of Tom's vanishing. They claimed to be there to provide some form of technological support. Their presence raised eyebrows and prompted considerable confusion, as the FBI, well, they don't typically intervene in a missing persons case unless there's credible evidence suggesting a crime has occurred. However, there may be more flexibility in cases involving missing young individuals. A former FBI agent with almost 3 decades of experience, he gave his opinion on this case.
The mere disappearance of an adult doesn't automatically classify it as a crime warranting FBI intervention. Adults are free to walk away from their lives without notifying anyone. However, if there's evidence hinting at foul play, a missing persons case is initiated by local law enforcement. The FBI typically leads a missing person investigation only under 2 conditions. First, if foul play is suspected and the person's last known location was on federal property, or second, if the missing person is a U.S. official elected or appointed. Typically, the FBI's involvement relies on a request for assistance from local law enforcement or state authorities.
This added a really strange layer to the unfolding mystery, as it hinted at potential suspicions of foul play in Tom's case and led to the FBI's involvement. Although the details, it still remains sketchy. In this strange case, there was an absence of any evidence to suggest criminality, leaving investigators puzzled about the FBI involvement. It remains unclear whether their presence had been requested by law enforcement, raising more questions about their real motivation. Tom's wife recounted that these agents expressed a deep sense that something was profoundly amiss about this disappearance. However, the exact nature of their concerns, well, they kept that a secret. They alluded to not being able to define what was wrong until Tom's body was discovered, leaving everyone with an unsettling sense of uncertainty. It was almost as if these supposed FBI agents knew that something was different about the case, but they were unable or unwilling to give any information to the searchers or the family. Consider the circumstances. An elderly man who shouldn't have been capable of travelling far had vanished without a trace. Search efforts, including tracking dogs and thermal imaging equipped helicopters, failed to yield even a single hint of his whereabouts. This mystery seemed to be the very reason for the FBI being there. The incident defied all reason, featuring an elderly man's inexplicable vanishing act. The absence of any leads or traces fueled suspicion that Tom might have been taken by a third party. Agreeing with investigators' assessment that an animal attack was very unlikely, searchers anticipated finding at least a trace of Tom. His equipment and belongings were unlikely to have been disturbed, degraded or consumed by any animal attack. This led to the unsettling suspicion that he may have been taken. If that was indeed the private hypothesis of the investigators, then something must have occurred while the younger 3 were ascending that hill. It appeared that Tom had already vanished before the group even established radio contact with each other. No one ever heard from Tom, suggesting that he had disappeared before the group started making their way back down the hill towards the Watchers. If Tom had simply wandered off, there would likely have been radio contact or attempts to use his equipment to attract attention, as I said before. Moreover, the extensive search effort would probably have located him in that case. The central question remained: were the FBI fully aware of the strange nature of this case, and did they sense the unusualness surrounding it? If so, this could indicate that they possess knowledge of other similarly bizarre disappearances over the years. Alternatively, they might have harboured suspicions of foul play but just chose not to reveal their reasons for involvement. The relentless search for Tom, involving numerous agencies and volunteers, continued without yielding any clues about his whereabouts. The effort persisted until dark on the Wednesday, with plans to resume on the Thursday despite a gloomy weather forecast. David Winchell, a spokesperson for the State Department of Environmental Conservation, he revealed that searchers had expanded their efforts to include previously unexplored areas. While they held doubts about Tom venturing out that far, the exhaustive search had left them with few alternatives. Compounding their challenges, the weather had taken a turn for the worse, and heavy rains added to the difficulty and danger of the entire operation. At some point during the search, a perplexing notion took hold among all those involved. Had Tom somehow managed to exit the woods, maybe reached a road, and perhaps maybe he was involved in an accident? All roads within a substantial radius of Tom's last known position were meticulously scoured, yet there was no evidence suggested such an outcome. Searchers emphasised that Tom's equipment and belongings remained untouched, defying the expectations of animal interference. The search became an enormous undertaking, drawing hundreds of people from over 60 jurisdictions, each eager to assist. Experienced search dog teams were deployed from various sources, and helicopters had continuously scoured the area from above. However, to the bewilderment of all, there was still no sign of Tom. Locals, including Tom's friends, family and companions that day, expressed their deep sense of confusion, echoing the sentiments of an extraordinary disappearance. While theories circulated, including concerns about Tom's companions, there was a glaring absence of any evidence pointing to foul play. The men who had been with Tom cooperated fully with the investigation and were never considered suspects. There was no indication of any wrongdoing during the initial questioning by the state police. The official search for Tom ultimately concluded on November 26, 2015, 11 days after he vanished. Nevertheless, a handful of people continued to search periodically over the years, never yielding any results. There was also a relatively popular hypothesis involving a sinkhole, suggesting that underground water erosion may have created a sinkhole near Tom's position, which collapsed and swallowed him before being concealed back again by the earth. However, this theory faced a lot of scepticism, as extensive searches would definitely have uncovered evidence of such an event. The crux of this matter remains the FBI's involvement in a disappearance that lacked any evidence of foul play. The presence of the FBI, the absence of wildlife in the area, and the strange noise heard during the search, well, this raises numerous questions. Whether the FBI possessed undisclosed information pointing to foul play or had another motive for their presence, that will always remain a mystery. To this day, there are still no answers for the loved ones and the family of Thomas. Maybe one day, they will get the answers that they deserve. Thanks for joining me on this video. What's your thoughts on this case? Remember to stay safe out there, folks. Take care of yourselves. And as always, keep smiling.